Hey guys, my name is Zach Gallagher and I'm a professional Kendama player. I've been competing at the pro level in Kendama for the past 10 years and I've competed in over 100 different open division matches. In this video, I'm going to go over the what, when, why, and how of open division. So what is open division? Open division is the main style of competition at the majority of Kendama events around the world. It gets used in multiple divisions of skill, beginner, intermediate, advanced, am open, and pro, and is a 1 versus 1 bracket style tournament. In each match, there are 2 players, and both players are battling to be the first one to 3 points. Whoever gets 3 points first moves on in the competition, while their opponent gets eliminated if it's a single elimination tournament, or gets sent to the loser's bracket if it's a double elimination tournament. Now let's move on to how open division works. To earn a point in a match, you must successfully complete a trick from that competition's trick list while your opponent fails the same trick. Each competition curates their own unique trick list for their different skill divisions. For example, there are 2 very large annual competitions in the United States. Battle at the Border is hosted in Nashville, Tennessee, while the North American Kendama Open is hosted in Minnesota. The tricks that the players compete with in beginner, intermediate, advanced, and so on will be different at Battle at the Border than at North American Kendama Open. The tricks for each division at these competitions are usually published on YouTube 1 to 2 months before the competition to give players entering time to prepare and practice. So now let's break down an example open match. 2 players are 1 versus 1 facing each other with a judge typically a couple steps back in the middle of the 2 competitors to oversee their game. We did not have a third person for this video example, so just bear with us. Each player must only use 1 kendama throughout the entire match. Players are not permitted to switch kendamas during the match. To decide who goes first, players can rock, paper, scissors, flip a coin, but the most popular way to decide who goes first is actually a game called Spin the Ken. In Spin the Ken, a player or a judge spins the Ken sideways and lowers it towards the ground. Once the Ken touches the ground, the spin will stop, and whichever direction the spike is facing, that player will be able to decide who goes first, themselves or their opponent. Once the player that goes first is decided, that player draws a card from the trick deck. The trick deck is usually being held by the judge. With these trick decks, you are drawing tricks at random. You do not know which trick you're going to be competing with in that point until you draw it from the deck. So remember what I said about each competition having their trick lists? Well, trick lists vary from 10 to 30 tricks. And the fact that tricks are randomly pulled in each match encourages players to become proficient at all of them. Like I said earlier, you get 1 point when you successfully do a trick that you draw while your opponent fails it. Each player has up to 3 attempts to do the trick that is drawn. Now let's get into the game and start scoring some points. So for this demonstration, let's pretend you're the player on the right. Here's the first situation. You draw the trick, you land it, and now there's pressure onto your opponent to land it because now if they miss, you get a point and they go down 1-0. And in this game, your opponent misses, so you just got 1 point. Now the score is 1-0, and the trick that you just pulled does not go back into the deck. It goes on the ground or table beside the judge, out of play. Players take turn having first go at a trick. So because you won Spin the Ken and you just went first on the last point, your opponent will draw the next trick and go first on the next point. In this point, your opponent draws the trick and completes it successfully. Now it's your turn to do the trick. And you successfully complete it as well. This is called a match. You match their trick, so neither of you scored a point on each other in that set. So now it's back to your opponent for their second out of 3 attempts to make this trick. And your opponent successfully completes it again. Now it's back to you for your second attempt. If you miss, your opponent gets a point. And you missed, so now the score is 1-1. For the next point, it's your turn to draw the trick. And you successfully complete it. Now it's your opponent's turn. And they successfully complete it too. And this continues for both of your second attempts and both of your third attempts. Because the both of you have successfully done the trick for all 3 of your attempts, that trick is now going to be discarded and that point is over. No one gets a point, and that is called a null. A null will also occur in 2 other scenarios. Let's say the opposite happened. Both of you failed all 3 attempts of your trick. That is a null and no point is given. A null can also happen if you have a combination of both missing and matching each other in your attempts. For example, you both successfully complete the trick on your first attempts, miss on your second attempts, and successfully complete it again on your third attempts. These are all nulls, neither of you will gain a point, and you will move on to the next trick. And from here on out, you finish the game. Typically, all games are played to 3 points, but in the finals matches of most divisions, the players will play to 5 points. Now let's go over 4 common mistakes of open division. 1. Performing a trick in a match in a different way than it was demonstrated in a trick video for the competition. For example, this trick is double gunslinger spike, double whirlwind from the NACO 2022 Pro Trick List. This is me doing the trick with a double inward whirlwind instead of a regular double whirlwind. Side by side, they look similar, but they are different. In this case, to be safe, I confirmed with the competition host about if my double inward whirlwind can count or not because the trick didn't specify double regular whirlwind. Pay attention to how the trick is demonstrated and worded in the trick videos. If you have any doubt or questions about the right way to do a trick, contact the event organizer. Sometimes there are exceptions, but do not assume. Clarify with the event organizer, and to be completely safe, always do the trick how it is exactly shown in the trick video. Because if you do this, there's no confusion or doubt if you did the trick right and if it's going to count in your match. Number 2, handing a trick. Handing is a broad term for using any body part of yours to stabilize the ken or tama when you're in the midst of a trick, even the dominant hand that you're playing with. If this happens, the trick is counted as a miss. Number 3, double cupping. You usually see this in the lower divisions like beginner or intermediate. Double cupping refers to hopping the tama around to change the tama hole's position when you're in a cup. This can help make certain tricks easier, like going to spike or stall out of a cup. In a competition, double cupping automatically counts as a miss. The expectation is that you will attempt the trick regardless of where the tama hole position is on the cup. And number 4, if you use your non-dominant hand to adjust a string mid-trick, that counts as a miss. Most competitions will let you blow the string out of the way, but you may not use any other body part to move it. And the last detail that I want to go over about open matches is the scenario in which you and your opponent go through all tricks in the trick deck and neither of you have scored 3 points yet. Each competition's rules with this scenario may vary a tiny bit, but typically all nulled out tricks will be reshuffled for the players to choose from again. Some competitions may even have the tricks that you and your opponent scored points on be reshuffled back into the deck for you to have an attempt at again if you pull it. When did the open style of competition in Kendama originate? According to Akimoto, a Japanese Kendama legend who has been playing Kendama for over 20 years, the open division style of competition was first used by the Japanese Kendama Association in 1977. Why compete in open division? I have 2 main reasons. 1, practicing your skill of Kendama under pressure. Opportunities of facing pressure in a competition like this are not only not common in Kendama, but are typically not common for most people in day-to-day life. We are very lucky as Kendama players to face this pressure, and as your skill under pressure and consistency improves, you will undoubtedly be improving as a Kendama player overall as well. Number 2 is to see how you stack up against the rest of the competition. It's easy to stay in your comfort zone, doing tricks in your room, grinding tricks on camera by yourself, passing up the competition, and just spectating for the event. One of the best ways to figure this out is to compete in competition with players who are around your skill level or are much higher than your skill level. If you want to increase your skill level in Kendama and feel that unique feeling of glory that you can only get through competition, enter a competition, test yourself, chances are you won't regret it. To round this video out, I want to emphasize the importance of knowing the rules, knowing how an open division match works. You might be thinking, what's the worst that could happen if I don't know the rules? Or this seems pretty easy, I don't really want to go back and look at the rules again to make sure I understand them. If you don't know the rules, you have a way higher chance of not scoring points and having points scored against you. You risk getting a point scored on you if the judge, the person officiating your match, makes an error. You risk mistakenly doing a trick wrong from how it is demonstrated in the video, and also practicing it like that every single day up into the competition, only to realize that you've been doing it wrong the entire time and that all your attempts do not count. And let me be clear, it's not your job to be hyper attentive to if your opponent does or does not do a trick right. That's the judge's job. However, judges are human too, and sometimes they make mistakes. That's why it helps to know the rules, because if you know the rules, you have a much higher chance of catching a mistake from your opponent and yourself.